Good morning, I'm Steve Gustitis and this is Walkabout. In this video, we'll talk about altitude sickness, how to prevent it, and how to deal with it if you get it out in the backcountry. All that's coming up right after this. Before we talk about altitude sickness, we need to come to a common understanding of what it is. At higher altitudes, usually starting around 8,000 feet above sea level, your body can become starved for oxygen. I mean, basically, there's just less of it at those higher altitudes. Altitude sickness comes in three categories, only one of which we'll talk about today. The first is called acute altitude sickness. The second is called pulmonary edema. And the third is cerebral edema. So if you're suffering from acute altitude sickness, you may experience one or more of the following symptoms. You might experience lightheadedness, dizziness, fatigue, nausea, elevated heart rate, a loss of appetite, and maybe even a pounding headache. Now, altitude sickness usually onsets between 12 and 24 hours after reaching the higher altitudes. Exercising, physical activity, hiking, can exacerbate and quicken the onset of altitude sickness. Now, in order of decreasing convenience, the following tips can help you avoid altitude sickness. The first is your fitness. If you've watched any of my videos here on the channel about fitness, you'll know how important I believe it is in solving all kinds of problems when you're out on trail up in the backcountry. At the end of this video, I'll give you a playlist on my fitness videos here at the channel, and maybe they can help you. Now, fitness alone may not be enough to keep you immune from acute altitude sickness, but it is definitely a solid foundation to help prepare you for your next hike up into those higher altitudes. Now, in my own experience, I have suffered from acute altitude sickness. In fact, it was simply horrible. But I think I've been able to avoid altitude sickness on other hikes, having developed a deep aerobic capacity through some of the fitness programs that I designed for myself. For example, when I hiked the Wyoming Snowy Range, I was well above 9,000 feet for most of the hike, and my home is near sea level, so I definitely had to prepare from a fitness aspect before I got up there and got out on the trail. On the first day of that hike, I could feel the onset of altitude sickness. I could feel myself getting a bit dizzy, lightheaded. But I think my deep aerobic capacity that I had developed through my fitness program helped me to avoid a full-blown case of acute altitude sickness when I was on that trip. Another tip, especially during your first day or two of the hike, just take it easy, take it slower, get your pace down. Take more frequent breaks and stay well hydrated. After a day or two, your body will become acclimated to the higher altitudes and you'll be in good shape and ready to go for the rest of your trip. And lastly, you can spend some time at high altitude before you begin your hike to allow your body to become acclimated to those higher altitudes. However, one problem with that tip is that getting to the trailhead a day or two early is simply not feasible. In any case, the factors that you do have control over before the trip are your level of fitness, and of course during that first day or two, slow that pace down, take it easy, stay hydrated to help you avoid that onset. So what do if you do get altitude sickness? First, remember you probably won't feel like doing anything. I remember when I had altitude sickness, laying in my tent, wishing I was dead. Remember that exercise and physical activity can exacerbate the altitude sickness. So if you get it, stay put, stay sedentary. It took me usually overnight before I started feeling better. But again, give your body some time to acclimate to that higher altitude. Now, things don't get better. If you feel like you're getting worse, you may need to decrease your altitude. Get down the mountain a bit, usually about 1,000 or 1,500 feet. Again, and give your body some time to acclimate before you continue with your trip. Everyone will react differently to higher altitudes. If you're coming from lower altitudes like sea level, for instance, like I do, you need to be ready to go before you get to that trailhead. Always expect the best, but you've got to be prepared for the worst. So good luck on your next trip, and I'll see you next time here at Walkabout.